So there's been a lot of rumblings about pre-cruise testing recently, and we really need to talk about this. So stay tuned. Hi everyone, Rob from Cruise Seekers, and welcome to one of my very few kind of cruise newsy type of episodes here on Cruise Seekers. I usually don't try to do this. There's so many other great YouTubers out there that really do a wonderful, wonderful job about cruise news. So I try to stay away from it, but this is something that I think we really need to start talking about because there's been some rumblings and we need to understand exactly what those rumblings are. Do we want to get our hopes up a little bit? Let's talk a little bit about cruise testing. But before we do, I just want to, thank everybody for coming in and watching my show. It's been a real wonderful time over the last 3.5 months watching this community grow. I hope that it continues to grow even more. If you like these type of things, if you like cruise news, if you like information about cruising, reviews about cruising, please consider about subscribing and hit that little notification bell on. This way you get notification when I do put out new content. It comes to you right away. It doesn't cost you a thing. It gives you good information. Thank you in advance. Oh, and by the way, if you do like this video, give it a thumbs up and also give me a comment down below and let me hear what you think about this cruise news, about testing, and maybe about it going away. So let's get into this. So about, what was it, about a week and a half ago, maybe a little bit less, somewhere around that way, the CDC they dropped the requirement for testing for airlines coming into the United States to have testing. International travelers, people coming back home from international traveling, they no longer need to have a test, a COVID test, to come back into the United States. There was a lot of, people, just especially in the travel industry, saying, this is really tamping down our business. It makes it really difficult for international travelers to come and visit the United States. It makes it really difficult for workers to go to, Europe or anywhere else in the world to do what they need to do and then come back to the United States. So the CDC just recently on June 10th got rid of that, got rid of the ability, the need for the testing to come back into the United States, which was a great thing. I was wondering, I wonder what's going to happen soon. I wonder if this might affect cruising in the near future. Didn't have my hopes tremendously up because I do know the CDC considers cruise travel a lot different than airline travel and a lot different than international travel in general. So I wasn't getting my hopes up. The CDC kind of looks at cruise ships as a kind of residential setting that's very confined, which tends to have a high transmissibility of COVID on those type of situations. So they look at this very differently. So I knew that this was a step and things were getting better, but I didn't think we would see much going on from there. So now we're going to fast forward to a couple of days ago where Cruise Hive asked the CDC about, hey, what about cruising? Are we thinking about changing the testing requirements for cruising? You just changed it from, the testing requirements for planes. What about cruising? And I guess they probably did this and said, we're never going to hear from them, but they did. So the CDC actually did get back in contact with the folks over in Cruise Hive, and they said, yeah, we are looking at the testing requirements for cruising, and we are going to take a new look at that. Now, they didn't give you any direction of one way or the other, which way they are leading, but they also did state about the way they do consider cruise travel completely different than international travel, especially coming in from a plane. They just look at it a lot differently. Now, we can argue until we're blue in the face. We're literally blue in the face about, well, what's the difference between, going to Europe and staying in a couple hotels and going out to dinner there and, seeing the sights and going to museums versus being on a cruise ship? There's really no difference. Well, I'm not going to argue that. I'm not, that's another type of story, and it really has nothing to do with cruising. So we'll just leave it at that. But, they did ask that question, and the CDC says, yeah, we are thinking about looking at it again, and we are looking at it in a new light with the new data that we have. But just remember, cruising is different than other forms of travel. So again, I was like, well, that's interesting. I didn't get extremely excited about it, But one of the things that just got me very excited was when P&O, the UK version of, I guess, Carnival, they're part of the Carnival group, decided to make a choice to do something very, very interesting. They're going to be taking the P&O Iona, and in the coming month, starting on June 25th, all the way to around July 23rd, they are not going to be doing pre-cruise testing. Now, it's a very, very specific type of thing. It's one ship for a period of exactly 1 month, which is very interesting to me because to me, that looks like a test. That looks like Carnival is taking the opportunity using one of their international brands in a different country in Europe, in the UK, and saying, let us see what happens if we don't test. We know what happened last month, right, with testing. We know how many cases we had then. Let's see if we take the next month and don't test and see how many cases we get. See if there's like a glaring difference. Or do we have a whole bunch more cases and yeah, testing is a great thing, we better keep it going? Or do we see it being about the same or makes no difference, statistically insignificant? And then they can take that information and say, look, we did a test. Here's A, here's B. A and B look the same. A, we had testing, B, we didn't. What's the benefit of testing? And they'll have actual data, which is important. Actual data that they can then go to other governmental agencies and say, look at what we found out. And, that's a compelling argument. And when people have compelling arguments, people who are intelligent tend to act on those compelling arguments. We'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. Who knows? They might see a huge spike in cases on the Iona when they go through this way. But if they don't, that can really lead to a good discussion with the CDC to talk about dropping the testing requirement in the United States. My guess is if it does work out well without the cruise testing, then we're going to see some discussions, further discussions come the end of the summer, and we might see some cruise in the United States eventually not have testing as well. Maybe the CDC might say, okay, I see that test. Let's do some testing in the United States. And they might kind of put some, things around it saying like, we'll say no testing for people who are fully boosted. And we'll see where we go from there. And they might take these baby steps, but it will get the ball rolling. And that's the amazing thing. Once we get the ball rolling, that's when things change. This is part of seeing that ball going down the hill. It's starting down the hill. I wasn't too excited about, the Cruise Hive news story because there was no movement. I didn't see any kind of ball moving. And, I know that the folks in the CDC look at airline travel and cruise travel completely differently. So when they stopped the testing for airline travel, I was like, well, it's a little nudge, but I know they don't consider it the same. So I wasn't too excited. But this excites me. I hope it does with you too. Well, there you go, folks. That's my little cruise news update. As I said, I don't do this much, but if you do like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you like this type of information, if you like, not too much cruise news, but some here and there when it's important, and also some cruise reviews, tips, tricks, how to cruise and save some money, think about subscribing, put that notification bell on, and until we talk again next time, this is Rob from Cruise Seekers saying to you, always seek the seas. Bye now.